Good morning. I would like to invite you to take a moment for you. With all the rush and busyness of our days, the commitments and responsibilities that we all have, we often don't stop to breathe. Before Simone shares her amazing words, you are invited to focus on your mental health through the power of your breath. Oxygen is a life force, a calming agent, a release valve for stress. So with that, I invite you to take a moment to just breathe. Inhale completely through your nose and exhale completely through your mouth. Do that in silence for 3 rounds of breath. You matter. Take care of yourselves. When you're ready, return to the room.
Can I take you to a moment where the trees are painted gold and the leaves are filled with memories of the feelings never told? Bloom by the Paper Kites.
If you want your life to be a magnificent story, then begin by realizing you are the author. Mark Houlihan.
I've learned that every waking moment is enough, and excess never leads to better things. It only piles and piles atop the things that are already abundantly in front of you, like breathing and chasing and slow dancing, and fighting and laughing. I'm unhinged, unworthy, and distasteful to mostly everyone I meet. However, I'm loyal to a fault to anyone I find kindness in, and I do not and will not fear tomorrow because I feel as though today has been enough. And I got no hate in my heart for anything, anywhere, or anyone. Zach Bryan.
There are days when the thought of leaving slips into my mind. It's a thought that is dark and far from kind. And most of the time, I wonder how it worked its way to a place that leaves me feeling burdened, blind, and behind. But I'm fine. At least that's what I tell myself from time to time. But I can't leave. I can't leave because I have yet to see the sun set over and through the redwood trees. And I can't leave because I have yet to find rest in the mess, and I still have a little something left to give than my best. And I can't leave because next Saturday I made plans and I don't want to be late. And I can't leave because I love the way she cooks, and part of me wonders, at age 74, how I will look. And as silly as it sounds, I've never seen a moose in the wild. And I want to see a moose in the wild. And I can't leave because for as hard as living can be, I can't help but believe there is beauty beginning to bloom out of the brokenness. I believe there is. And I'm going to see it. Good morning. My name is Simone Rutledge, and I am a 6th form student from Simsbury, Connecticut. I am also an only child. I love rain, dogs, the ocean. I visit Poland nearly every summer to visit my mom's side of the family, and while I can barely speak it, I understand a great deal more than others realize. I never paint the ring finger of my left hand. My friends would describe me as funny, outgoing, giving, creative. Driving is my therapy, running is my outlet. I am extraordinarily impatient. I am a good friend. My relationship with my parents can be taxing, but love does not begin to describe my appreciation or care for them. I love Greek mythology. If I were a Greek god, I would be Dionysus. I am ineffably grateful for every little thing, and why am I telling you this? The poem I just read to you is one that I found in Mr. Court's creative writing class at the beginning of this year, a class I highly encourage you to take if you are interested in finding yourself. And while I have not had the exact words tucked away in my head all my life, I have carried their essence and meaning with me for as long as I can remember. People get really scared to talk about this topic straight up, without metaphors, but I am not. Suicide. It's just a word, but the pain behind it is unfathomable. Growing up, I always knew exactly who I was and who I wanted to be. I'm not talking about a firefighter or a teacher. I always knew I wanted to be kind. To be the thing that made life just a little bit easier for others who were trapped in these dark places. About halfway through 8th grade, I entered one of these sad places myself. I had absolutely no control of my life. I started hating everything. Hated myself, had no idea what things made me happy, and I couldn't feel myself anymore. Myself, who I genuinely loved and was so proud of. There was just this void, a bottomless pit. But I pretended. And I can confidently say that except for a few slip-ups here and there, no one really knew. And no one knew the true extent of it. My brain switched off, and I basically lived on autopilot for the next 2.5 years. In school, I'd been a straight-A, obsessive, nocturnal perfectionist in every circle of my life, academically, socially, athletically. I was constantly praised and held as an example for others. But when I would come home at night, I would sit in my room, look at my ceiling for hours that felt like eternities, and I did not know for a fact that there was a future lying in front of me. I could not picture myself graduating high school. When I first came to Westminster, this burnout followed me. I was a stranger. Found little joy in anything, a ball of anxiety, but I still tried to involve myself in the community that drew me here in the first place. It didn't work. Eventually, I reached a point in the peak of COVID and social distancing that I didn't even feel sad anymore. I couldn't feel anything. This all changed the summer going into my junior year. I had just finished online driver's ed, which was horrible, and finally received my driver's license in June. This was honestly the day that I was reborn. I had control again. A true joy was reignited. It was also the summer that I grew close with this one over here. We would go on runs together, eat ice cream at Toll Meadow, and go on countless spontaneous adventures. Going into school the fall of that fall of junior year, we became the heads of the outing and ski club, my new and profound passions. I found out I really enjoyed spending time outdoors. I went from being the girl who went home right after classes and sports to staying as late on campus as humanly possible. I squeezed every drop out of every moment, and I began to love again, to try new things, to explore. I also started developing my mini reputations on campus as the tree-climbing girl, or the girl who really sucks at skateboarding, but hey, she's trying, or cross-country captain. I remember the moment when I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I had found myself again. It was one late afternoon at the beginning of fall when I looked up at the sky, and there was this sunset. An illogical part of myself had completely forgotten that those exist in the real world, that they aren't just some figment of imagination in movies. I had grown so used to being alone back home in my room with the blinds down by this time that I was in utter awe and shock. I knew that myself, the little girl who had been lost all those years ago, was finally back. The gratitude for every literal thing ever was back. I was back. So, happily ever after, right? Wrong. That same wonderful, crazy, sad, disastrous, and freeing year of my life, junior year, I encountered a near-death experience. As a type 1 diabetic, my immune system is compromised, and even the smallest cold can set me back a little longer than the next guy. On December 10th, 2021, I tested positive for COVID-19. Well, without getting too deep into that story, obviously, I lived. Despite an antibody transfusion and many visits to the ER, including a terrifying overnight stay. The anniversary of that event this past December 2022 affected me more than I thought it would. I felt myself being ripped away again from my steady, boring happiness, back in that box, that space I mentioned earlier. But this time, there were no windows or doors. This time, I really couldn't see a way out. The scariest part was the absence of a why. I couldn't really describe why I felt that way. I distinctly remember sitting in one of those cushy chairs in the library in Armour, under the stairs, as a dear friend tried to console me. They asked me that same question: why? After my frighteningly hollow answer, they asked, "What do you want to do? What do you need?" And I responded, "I think there's something wrong with me. I think I need help." And I went home early that day. But before I left, I took a long walk on campus, memorizing every inch and recalling every memory. I wanted to feel it all again, one last time. I sat in my car and drove home in silence, the long way, down my favorite road. That same road that the ambulance had driven down all those nights ago, when I thought it would be my last time feeling each beloved bump. I got home, went to bed, woke up at dinner to tell my parents I felt sick and couldn't go to school tomorrow, went to sleep, and then woke up. For the last time, I thought. My phone was flooded with text messages from my friends, concerned I seemed a little off from our last interaction, letting me know how much they cared about me, how much they loved me, but I couldn't feel it. I kept walking from my room to the driver's seat of my car, tempted to drive to UConn Medical Center and just ask for help, but I didn't do that. I laid down on the cold wood floor in the living room and read my childhood favorite book, The Art of Racing in the Rain. I grew bored of that and watched some of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Grew bored of that and worked on my 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. Grew bored of that and wandered over to my bed. A book was staring at me from my nightstand, Walk a Little Slower, Tanner Olson. It was the book of poetry that I had purchased for my creative writing class. Mr. Court had told each of us to pick a different book of poetry for the term. Riddled with indecisiveness, I picked the one whose cover made me smile, Big. I was probably a week behind on reading. I caved and indulged, and that's how I found my poem. And that's how I knew, again, that it would all be okay. Soon it would rain again, my nail polish would chip, and I would paint 9 more coats of color. The little sibling figures in my life would grow up and become mentors to even younger kids. My current dog will die, and then there will be more dogs. I will go to Toll Meadow with my best friend again, and walk along that path that has a perfect view of the sunset. I will experience turbulence. We all will. Our chests will rise and fall, and the sun will continue to rise and set, regardless of whether or not we remain under it. But I really hope you all do, because there's so much more life left to be had. It will suck, it will be painful, and though many of you fortunately never do, some will go near that line between life and death. A loss of self, a hollow. Embrace that pain, because eventually, and it may take 2.5 years or a day, there will be joy again. You will find your people, you will find the things that make you feel ecstasy, and most importantly, you will find yourself, just as I did. Thank you. The song you were about to hear was another factor that brought me back to life. It granted an epiphany and symbolizes all of the things I had lost and then found again. And a lot of you may recognize it, so feel free to sing along.